$10 trillion is on the move right now, and if you haven't noticed, that's not by accident. Because the institutions moving it don't want you to follow. Not yet. They've quietly begun repositioning their capital, not into stocks, not into bonds, but into a completely new class of assets that barely existed a decade ago. Assets that most people still mock, avoid, or ignore completely. But behind closed doors, BlackRock, Goldman Sachs, and global central banks are locking in their control. They're not betting, they're migrating. Because this next wave isn't just about profit. It's about infrastructure, surveillance, and the architecture of money itself. And once the rails are finished, retail won't have a seat at the table. So what are these assets? At the center of it all is a high-speed consolidation of crypto infrastructure, tokenized real-world assets, and decentralized protocols with institutional backdoors. That sounds complex, but it's all pointing to one thing: programmable money. We're talking about Bitcoin, XRP, XLM, HBAR, tokenized treasury bills, on-chain gold, even private smart contracts designed to mimic the dollar without actually being dollars. And the financial elite are positioning early, not because it's risky, but because it's becoming inevitable. Just follow the filings. BlackRock didn't just launch a Bitcoin ETF. They followed it up by filing for an Ethereum spot product, exploring tokenized funds on public blockchains, and running controlled pilots with JP Morgan and the New York Federal Fidelity. They're building digital custody platforms and staking infrastructure, and they've already partnered with firms like Galaxy and Anchorage to bridge institutional clients directly into crypto-native markets. Even Citadel, the same Citadel that helped crush retail traders in the GameStop saga, launched a crypto exchange behind the scenes. They called it EDX Markets, and who's backing it? Charles Schwab, Fidelity, and Sequoia Capital. These aren't startups chasing hype. These are legacy institutions quietly embedding themselves in a new financial operating system, and they're doing it before the masses realize what's happening. And while retail investors argue about which coin will go to the moon, the infrastructure itself is being captured in plain sight. But the real question is, why now? Why are the biggest asset managers in the world who laughed at Bitcoin 5 years ago now engineering pipelines into every protocol they can access? Because they understand something most people still don't. Traditional financial plumbing is failing. Interest rates remain elevated, bond markets are volatile, commercial real estate is breaking, and the banking system still quietly bleeding after the shock collapses of 2023 and 2024. Just last month, the FDIC quietly added 4 more regional banks to its watch list. The cracks haven't gone away, they've just been papered over. So institutional capital is flowing towards systems that can settle value instantly, tokenize assets globally, and bypass jurisdictional choke points without relying on the dollar as the core settlement layer. This isn't about crypto anymore, it's about control. That's why the IMF is testing cross-border CBDCs using Ethereum testnets. It's why the BIS, the Central Bank of Central Banks, is publishing white papers on real-time FX tokenization and synchronized settlements. And it's why Ripple, through partnerships with the World Bank and over 40 central banks, is quietly positioning XRP as a neutral liquidity rail for cross-border payments. If you think this is speculative, you're not paying attention. It's already happening. HSBC is now offering tokenized gold vaulting on-chain through their digital asset platform. Franklin Templeton is running tokenized treasury funds on Polygon, and Hong Kong just authorized Bitcoin and Ethereum spot ETFs, giving Asia direct institution exposure through regulated rails. This is the transition, and it's not a guess, it's coordinated, because every institution understands what happens next. When the current system begins to break, and we are dangerously close, the new rails have to be ready. The next liquidity crisis won't be solved with the same playbook. It'll be solved with programmable assets that can be distributed, controlled, and monitored in real time. And here's the part no one's saying out loud. If you're not in before the system is finalized, you don't get in. Because the game isn't to make crypto mainstream, it's to capture it before the public knows it's been institutionalized. The exact same thing happened with the internet. First, it was dismissed, then it was mocked, then it was privatized and dominated by a handful of surveillance monopolies. And now, you can't operate outside of it. The same playbook is being run on crypto and on asset tokenization as a whole. Except this time, it won't just change how we communicate. It will change who has access to money, who gets liquidity during crisis, and who controls the rails that determine economic freedom. Already, over $10 trillion in institutional capital is expected to flow into tokenized real-world assets by 2030. The According to Boston Consulting Group, that's not a fringe number. That's institutional consensus. And the movement has already begun, from BlackRock's digital asset funds to Goldman's tokenization division to Fidelity's staking infrastructure. The new system is being built by the same hands that engineered the last one. And once it's done, the rules will be very different. Retail won't get early access, open liquidity will be restricted, and value flows will be tracked, controlled, and programmable from the top down. But right now, in this sliver of time where the transition is still underway, the doors are cracked open. Bitcoin is still hovering around $105,000. XRP is still around $2.19. HBR XLM and other utility-grade tokens are still treated like volatile bets instead of foundational infrastructure. But in boardrooms, the conversations are not about speculation, they're about access. Because once the tokenized system is live, once central banks, governments, and institutions have flipped the switch, these assets won't look the same. Their function will change, their exposure will narrow, and their availability to the public may disappear altogether. The time to understand this shift is not after it's complete, it's right now. Because once the value is migrated, once the systems are built, and once the door is closed, your ability to get in will be gone. And by then, $10 trillion will already be on the other side. And that's what makes this moment so critical. Because you still have time to front-run the system. You still have access to assets that within a few years may be locked behind institutional walls or reclassified into structures that remove retail access altogether. We've seen this pattern before. Commodities, derivatives, and entire markets that were once open eventually became controlled through opaque instruments, inaccessible minimums, or insider-only platforms. The crypto space and everything tied to asset tokenization is heading down the same path. The difference is that right now the door is still open, barely. The question is whether you'll move before it closes. Ask yourself, why are central banks studying Ethereum? Why is the IMF exploring tokenized settlements? Why is a trillion-dollar asset manager filing products that integrate crypto into traditional portfolios? It's not because they believe in freedom, it's because they want control, and they understand the true power of programmable value, not as a bet, but as a tool for shaping monetary policy, crisis management, and global influence in ways we've never seen before. The real play here isn't about price, it's about positioning. And those who understand that, who move before the rails are finalized, won't just protect their wealth, they'll redefine their place in the next system. This isn't about being a trader anymore, it's about becoming ungovernable. And the window is closing. Subscribe for more breakdowns like this because the system isn't evolving, it's being replaced.